Hi. So what is a soul contract? First, let's define each word. Soul is believed to be a substantial entity that thinks, lives, feels, has will, awareness, and knowledge. Contract is a mutual agreement between two or more people to do or not do something. An agreement is simply a decision that would please someone. So that being said, soul contracts are decisions we make that would please you or somebody else before you are born on earth. And how does that happen? Before coming on earth, you have had lives. You might have heard about people that have past lives. And with that, you might have been a Pleiadian, a Lyran, a Procyon, Trucion, and there are so many beings that we have been. You might have been a person, here reincarnating once again, or, as a consciousness, as a soul, like, hey, you lived before 3D, and you've had many lives. In those lives, you too have a story. And in that story, you will experience a lot of things, good and bad. And a lot of times, things that will traumatize you, cause you pain and unconsciousness will end up with you making a decision that will impact your life and existence afterwards. With that being said, it is as simple as you are being a kid and, oh, well, kids are playing and let's see, we have a rock and there's a bird. And you throw a rock at the bird, you hit the bird is hurt or the bird is dead. And oh my God, I thought we were playing, but the bird died and I actually loved the bird, but now I killed someone. And from that moment, there's the pain, understanding of the situation, and a decision, a very strong decision to, I will no longer hurt anybody else. It is great because you are no longer trying to go into violence or hurting someone. But at the same time, in a way, it can put you in a situation where you don't want to hurt anybody. So you will no longer stand up for yourself and fight or argue with someone or go into situations where maybe standing up for yourself and protecting and doing things that would keep you like into the fight and maybe dealing some damage, whether it is emotional, psychological, or physical, but at least you help yourself and others and you will back off. So these agreements, the decisions we make, and it's basically decisions, very strong decisions. And all of these happen before we come on earth. Now, how do we have so many and how do we know what happened? Like, there's going to be a lot of videos about it, but before coming on earth, since this is a game, think of installing an application or a video game on your phone or on your computer or your console. There are terms of services, all of these agreements and things we have to look at and agree. A lot of us just wants to join the game. We want to play it. And we don't really care about what we're agreeing. I doubt that many of you, while installing the application or something, would actually go and read through all of those terms of services and see what you're actually agreeing to. We just want to play the game. So with that, there are certain groups that, want to affect people here on Earth and make you more like a corporation, make you more like that person that doesn't really exist or like a product, and you're simply seen as meat. Like, people eat chicken and you're kind of seen as chicken. They don't hate you, they don't love you, they just eat you. So any way they can harvest you, get the loosh and the energy and maybe trap a godlike being like you, various things that can happen. But with that, while you join the game, you don't really see a lot of things that you agree, and it's basically a trap. They're setting you up. And a lot of these agreements will impact your life before you even come here. Some of you might get a birth bump and other things. This will be like later videos. But whatever you have decided in past life, like recently, I have worked with some people who, before came on earth, were healers. They were helping others. And ways they would heal someone is, hey, I'm going to be the mirror. I'm going to see your pain and how you're hurting. And I'm going to mirror it and feel it myself, and I'm going to heal it through myself, and you're going to get better. Lots of techniques. But some people will do that and bring that aspect, like it was their decision to help others. Hey, I'm going to help others. I'm a healer, and this is how I heal people. And they carry it on here on Earth and end up mirroring and sort of like whatever disease or a thing a person has, whether it is the ache in the back or a headache or like some other thing they have, boom, they manifested here in the physical body. Maybe you've had a lover and that lover cheated onto you, and it hurt you, it broke your heart, and you decided, I will never trust them again. And in this life, no matter how hard you try to connect to someone, there's going to be agreements of not trusting people, the betrayal. I'm never going to be cheated on again. I will never feel that pain again. You've experienced that. You said it to yourself. You've decided for that life, but you can carry it here on earth. And with that, you will have a lot of these soul contract agreements, agreements that you have made before coming here on earth that will impact your life, that will limit you one way or the other. So whatever you have experienced beforehand, before living on earth, whatever agreements you made, as let's say, having to sign a little contract, yeah, I'm going to be a human being. And other times we have to, well, we don't have to, we're forcefully incarnated here. Someone pushes us here against their own free will, and someone pushes us against our own free will. I'm sorry about that. And basically, soul traps and being attacked by entities and getting into some war and getting into some trap. Like a lot of things can happen. Like you might have been playing in the fourth dimension, fifth dimension, and other places, and you get attacked. Maybe the enemies have certain technology. Maybe it's your friend gonna tease you and prank you and, let's see this, like our friend getting out of Earth. And they get you here on Earth. You've had some agreements before coming here, and now you're stuck. And you hate this place, you can't relate to anyone, your life sucks, but you never wanted to come here. It was never your goal, which is why a lot of people don't really have a passion or goal or a thing to do on Earth. It was never their thing. You were just forcefully incarnated. So with all of these variations, soul contract agreements are agreements we make before being born on Earth. So that's it.
So today I'd like to talk about why would you choose this lesson? Or another title I thought about is you did not always choose to suffer. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, this has come up a couple times in the last couple months in sessions, and I think it's really important to address a massive fallacy that I find to be very dangerous throughout the New Age spiritual metaphysical community. Now, I've been on both ends of this. I absolutely used to have this belief system where I bought into this, and it costed me a lot of unnecessary grief, confusion, and it led me down wrong paths often. Now, what I'm speaking about is the general belief in the New Age movement that these lessons, these soul contracts, whatever they may be showing up in your life, that either you're gathering and reading through the Akashic records. Now, I've already talked about what I think about the Akashic records. Refer to this video if you haven't seen it. And or something that your spirit guides or angels are coming in to tell you is for a higher good or your higher path, what have you. Or you're looking at lessons, karmic agreements, soul contracts, what have you, with people or situations in your life that you have seen have been playing out for alternate timelines, or you put this into play to learn some kind of lesson. Now, this runs the gamut in regard to topics and situations and different relationships with people. Though the major theme here is that there's some kind of experience, interaction, relationship, or situation that you've been dealing with, that you're in, that is extremely tumultuous and difficult. It's costing you great suffering and grief, though through the guidance, in whatever way you access that guidance, you're being told or led to believe that this situation, this relationship, this soul contract, what have you, is for your higher good, your ultimate benefit when it comes to the expansiveness of your soul. Now, I have a really big beef with this because, first of all, if we look at a basic scenario of if it sounds like a horse, if it acts like a horse, it's probably not a zebra, right? So if we have a situation that feels horrible, if you have a relationship that seems extremely unhealthy, if you're unhappy, then the most likely thing here is that this is not good for you. It's not that you are required to go through massive suffering and strain and hardship and scarcity and abuse, whatever it is, in order to gain some elusive soul lesson that you won't even be able to enjoy in this timeline, right? That's nonsensical. It's illogical. And it is a fundamental basis of a lot of the belief systems and structures put into place in different sectors of New Age and spiritual movement. And so something that this does, when somebody takes on the belief system that something that they're experiencing is completely counter to their joy or happiness, but some other force, whether it be internal dialogue or spirit guides, or they're reading the Akash, or they're clairvoyantly viewing soul contracts or lessons through a specific scope of how they've been taught, or they think they're supposed to access these etheric realms. And the messages they're receiving in whatever form seems conflicting to what feels good in their now moment. This is very dangerous, and I challenge this view. This is not always the case of what I'm saying, but discernment is key here, because a primary technique utilized in this type of belief system is gaslighting and cognitive dissonance. This is a very specific design that is meant to lead you to a crossroads where what you know feels good and what seems logical to you for your present current life, truly the one that matters, the only PowerPoint you have in now moment, right here and now, is completely contradictory to what you're being told, or the information you're receiving, or your belief systems, because of some elusive way out there, non-accessible in this moment, grander lesson that you're supposed to gain throughout the expansiveness and omnipotence of your soul and or spirit. This gaslighting, these two contradictory ideas that lead your mind to a place of shutdown and submission, which then opens a pathway to believing the fallacy in a way that is almost without question. Now you'll just follow it because your mind couldn't handle these two conflicting issues, right? Or you have to check out in some way through your soul or spirit, because the cognitive dissonance, the counter belief systems don't sit well with you. And so in order to accept this path, you have to somehow detach from your grounded existence of who you are in present moment. This is a very common technique used through manipulation. We've seen it through the covert ID program that's been going on for the last year and a half or plus now. We've seen it through all sorts of psychological situations that maybe you've studied or experienced. It's just that this technique, this manipulation tactic, is being taken into a more spiritual guise. And so I challenge this, because I personally have been in lots of situations where my quote unquote guidance said, oh no, this is for your higher good, or just trust what's happening, or this is your karma, you've been playing this out life after life, where I viewed timelines where it's repetition, repetition, repetition. And that absolutely is what happens, right? Most of us know by this point that we loop patterns all the time, but it doesn't mean that it's to your higher benefit. It could be to someone's higher benefit, right? And so if you're receiving guidance, even hearing telepathically or telephony in your mind, of these guides or quote unquote angels are telling you to move through a path or do something or stay with someone or make choices that just don't sit well with you, they don't feel good, you have to give up something. There's your happiness, your abundance, your joy, whatever it is at stake. And unless you're going to be a devout devotee of some form to this higher guidance, you have to question what you enjoy or give it all up for suffering because you are under a belief that this is what's best for your spirit or soul. But the reality is that we do have lots of lessons. We all know that humans experience suffering. We go through challenges. We learn, we make mistakes. We loop patterns all the time. And maybe we have subconscious agreements with other people and situations, but that doesn't mean by any means that those agreements are healthy for you, that they're beneficial, that they're up to date, that you need them, or that you even wanted that when you initially made that agreement. So I hope that you can start to look at the simplicity. Let it be more simple. What feels good to you? What feels safe to you? What feels right for you? And in this now moment, right here, right now, if you're experiencing these challenges that are rocking your world and have been doing this for years or decades or whatever it is this something that you still want to deal with? Is this something that's still fruitful for you? Is this even necessary? Because there's more than one way to skin a goat, right? Now I'm a vegan, so pardon that reference, but you know what I mean. Now, an example of this that I saw the other day was I had a session with a first-time client who didn't know what to expect, nor did I know what he wanted to work on. But as we get into the session, it becomes very obvious to me that two of his previous family members who have crossed over, one more recently within the last couple of years, one even 20 years ago, they never fully crossed. They were in that limbo interim state, what I would like to call a discarnate soul. And I found this really interesting that two separate family members from two different lineage lines were hanging around. They're in his field and they need assistance. And so I'm assisting them to finally make their full crossover, to make their peace, to close out the information they needed, whatever it is that they're holding on to that they didn't want to move forward into their next experience in what we call the afterlife. And when they went to cross, it was a very visceral feeling for me because, my clear empathy will feel the situations. And it was really, it's like effervescent. It was overwhelming. It was moving in the most beautiful way. But I told them as they're crossing, I said, please go past the light. Don't stop at go. If you come to a place, whatever your belief systems of pearly white gates or higher beings that are here now to tell you everything's okay, you tell your spirit inside that you're going straight to spirit. You don't stop until you get to spirit. And I didn't want to explain any further because I didn't want to put concern in this new client's thoughts, nor did I want to scare the souls that were crossing. Though the reason I did that is because where we end up often, from my experience, when we cross, which gets us looped into these soul contracts and loop patterns that just go on through suffering and grief and baggage of karma and what have you for eternities, for timelines. We've all been there. We might not be aware of it. Is what I like to call the plane of bliss, what most people call heaven, but it's not the real heaven, okay? It's a reincarnation recycle station that over time we've ended up plenty because we're still looped into the matrix. And that's when we get this grand life review and we go over all the situations and the scenarios, and these loving beings come to celebrate our return here and show us what's happened with these different people and situations and what we learned and what we still need to develop on. And now here gently, let me coax you into your next karmic load so you can reincarnate with more baggage, more suffering under the guise of it's going to help your spirit and your soul expand, right? Well, what a load of crap. This just loops you into a whole nother timeline where you're doing the dirty work for these beings or energies or entities, what have you, that don't want to get their hands dirty. They don't want the karmic debt. So they kind of third party it off. They subcontract it, if you will. And so you end up with having to deal with all the junk and gunk and no payback. You don't get a break. You don't get to live a fantastic life where you're experiencing joy in your minute amount of time, maybe 100 years if you're lucky in this timeline. No, you're repeating. You're doing the dirty work. You're slugging it out, you know. That's not fair and it's not true. Now, there's plenty of things that we all need to learn, and it's not that we're always going to live these lives where it's easy breezy and that's just the way it goes. We all have our challenges, we all have our trauma, we all have our grief. So there's absolutely no reason to add on to what is already going to be in the regard of normal experiences that are difficult, because to be human, it ain't a cakewalk, right? And we want to be able to enjoy ourselves and feel right with ourselves and be at peace with our experiences and not feel succumbed to or trapped by some elusive, you know, intangible agreements or karmic debt or experiences that you've been led to believe your soul wants to learn, but it doesn't feel good right now. And you already see sometimes the very simple, obvious decisions where you could change your path completely, feel a whole lot better, and abandon that belief system, that timeline, that journey, what have you.
And then another question that we want to discuss in this video is, what is the purpose of soul contracts? So with soul contracts, I keep getting all of these concepts are, you know, meant for enslavement, just like with the reincarnation trap, just like with all of those things. So I keep getting over and over again, yes, they are definitely meant to keep us here and trapped in all of that. But specifically with soul contracts, it seems that soul contracts are in our DNA. There's something very precious about our DNA. And when I had that video on cremation, you know, some people were just wondering, so does it really matter though, once the soul is actually outside of the body? Does it still affect us? Because technically we're outside of the body. So the residue, we don't really leave something in the body. It's just like the body itself, like the empty shell. Like, what does it matter if that body is actually burnt? You know, and then it actually does matter. It still impacts us in one form or another, meaning cremation. And I'll link that video above as well. So the timestamp, just gotta take a look here. With cremation, it's basically the same energy as if you were burnt alive almost, maybe not as harsh though, but regardless, you can still reincarnate in the next lifetime and literally feel like you can't speak your truth or you can't speak up or whatever because of that fear that you might be burnt alive. And I explained that a little bit in my cremation video. And I know this must be true for some people because I'm getting, you know, I'm having like trouble speaking while I'm saying that. So for some people, that's usually a soul trauma that's coming about. But so with this entire soul contract thing, it's in our DNA. Now, our bones are basically our DNA, right? Like our hair, I think our nails, our saliva, all of that, like bones are DNA. And when they burn our bones, even though our soul is away from that, they still, there's something about DNA, there's something about them keeping the mummies of the ancient pharaohs, of keeping the skeletons of all the kings that were around in the medieval ages, of keeping all of those things somewhere where you can find them 400, 500 years later, or even 4,000 years later. There's something very precious about bones. Otherwise, there would be no reason for them to keep that somehow. Also, that bones are buried in the earth and then it kind of just decays. That's true as well. So skeletons definitely, I think they decay actually, because sometimes you find skeletons from the Ice Age or whatever. They want us to believe that it is, right? Like we all know most of that probably is not true. Like the entire timelines are just completely off, which is another thing with time that kind of bothers me, you know, because technically we should have been here for millions or billions of years. But then a lot of people are saying, no, actually not. It's only been like a few millennial, or I mean, it's not been like, how long has it been? 2 million years, 500,000 years? I don't even know. It depends on what version you go by, you know, science, fake stream science. So I get we have not been here that long, maybe on a planet that was similar, but not on this specific planet. Regardless, there's something about bones where the DNA is stored. And what's also in your DNA is the entire soul trauma carries through your DNA. You have cosmic DNA, so it carries from one lifetime to the next one to the next one, which is also why most of the time you actually look similar now than you did in a previous lifetime, even though your hair structure might be a little bit different. Like it might have been straight in a previous lifetime, or it might have been curly. Your head might have been a little bit small, but you know, there's something about the DNA and then you having this similar or the same DNA in the next lifetime that I still need to dig into a little bit further, because it's very, very interesting. So soul trauma carries in the DNA, and soul contracts are supposedly stored in your DNA somehow. So soul contracts are in your DNA. It's not something that's in your psyche, in your mind, or somehow in your subconscious. It's actually in your DNA, which is also why they have those VACCINES, you know, like the mandatory pricks that want to alter your RNA and DNA. You know, they're actually telling you that already. Like the new one is supposed to alter your RNA and all of that. RNA is very connected to the DNA. It's just the only thing that you can't repair it like the DNA. So you can repair the DNA to a certain extent, obviously not fully, depending on the damage of it. With the RNA, it's very hard, or at least so much harder, to repair any damage that they do to it. And I still have to figure out a way how to do that, because most of the healings that I do focus on DNA healing. But with the RNA, what I've gotten so far is that it's actually significantly, yeah, just harder to repair, you know, so it's best to just not get any damage done to your RNA to begin with. I mean, the same goes with your DNA as well. But with the soul contracts, you know, it has to do obviously with enslavement, like to keep you here. When you write out a soul contract before entering this lifetime, you're basically writing out the game. So if you just imagine this being a video game, right? Like a lot of people say, Matrix, video game, whatever resonates with you, you're writing the game. You're also manipulating the game, but having others manipulate the game. Let's just say your spirit guides are the ones that give you the idea on the other side of the veil before you enter. You have to write a soul contract now with this person, that they are your mother, with this person that you're going to marry them, with this people that they're going to be your children, whatever. They're manipulating that game for you in a way. And you might be on the other side of the veil and not noticing that, which is, I think, also important why you're supposed to be waking up now while you're still alive and in 3D, not once you're sucked over on the other side of the veil. You're also giving consent to the game by writing that out. So writing, I already got that. I had a video on the spoken word or the written words. It's pretty interesting as well. And writing gives consent to whatever it is that you're writing out, okay? Which is also why the spoken words and the thought word, the words that you're thinking, are quite significant. But there's something about writing that gives it that extra hardiness, or that gives it that extra seal on top of it. And can you have more than one soul contract? Obviously, yeah, absolutely. You can have like a gazillion different soul contracts. Now, here's the thing though, the more you have, like the more soul contracts that you actually form somehow, the more intertwined you are with these people and also with this game, with the Matrix. and the more confusion is actually caused in getting out. So this is why it's so important, and I hate to say this for some people, but you know, some people who are just fans of making out with someone when they're drunk, or even being intimate with them, like having one night stands and all of that with them. I'm sure we've all been there at one point in our lives, you know, like as a teenager. Teenagers do a lot of dumb stuff. I wanted to say the SHIT, but I have to be very conscious of my words here. Teenagers just want to, you know, get out there, get wasted, go mate with others, just those kind of things. So we've all been at a certain age where we do a lot of stupid stuff, obviously, and we might still be at an age where we do that, or at a point in our lives. But this is why it's so important to not be intimate with a million people if you can avoid it, because being intimate is actually one of those huge soul contracts where it's actually really hard to kind of tear that up, because then you have formed cords with that person in addition to that stupid soul contract that you have with them. With soul contracts, by the way, you can actually just tear them up or light a fire, burn it, just burn it, you know, write it out. I am not having a soul contract with my mother anymore, with my father anymore, with my children anymore. And you just burn it up. I energetically do that a lot, especially with relatives and with close friends. And then I usually do notice a huge energetic difference. This time especially has been really triggering, the past year for sure, where I actually decided just to tear up a bunch of soul contracts and also just burn a bunch of soul contracts, hold them over sage, actually burn them and, you know, rinse them out, whatever. It does work. I do have to say that it definitely works. Now, what you do have to be conscious about, so you have those soul contracts, but in addition, you also have cords. So somehow cords form between people, and it has to do with the soul contract that you have with them. You can just you have to remove all of that constantly, especially if you've been intimate with someone. Like that's usually a huge one where entities can even enter your body. Let's just say you are intimate with someone who is completely addicted to alcohol or drugs or whatever, which happens more frequently than you think it would. You know, like in my opinion, half of the Midwest are alcoholics. Okay, so I know not everyone in the Midwest is an alcoholic, yeah, but I know a lot of people, like the drinking culture in certain states is just very different from other states. Also certain countries, obviously, you know, it's not just America. But when you're an alcoholic, when you drink a lot, and it's justified in the culture too, you have the ability to invite a lot of entities in your field. Now, you as someone who's maybe not an addict, or maybe you are, you just be intimate with that person because you think they're attractive or whatever. And then lo and behold, all of a sudden you have all the entities that were swirling above them and were in their field, you have them on you. And, you know, that's how I ended up with like 30 plus entities and beings on my solar plexus. And this is like a few years ago when I was in a relationship with someone who was actually very addicted to alcohol and all of that. And, you know, these are lovely people, obviously, but at the end of the day, if they don't empower themselves from that situation, there's not much you can do except for just moving on, because you don't constantly want to pull things out of your etheric field, out of your solar plexus area. You know, you just don't want that. And so, yeah, absolutely. You can have more than one soul contract with people. It's just that the more you have with them, also the more cords and attachments and all of that you have with these people, the more chaos it causes, and also the more confusion in your life. So part of my confusion with time over the fall, I felt, was definitely also caused by just people being in my energy field somehow, who I should have cut off a long time ago. Now, this is not coming from being intimate with them, but from them just literally messaging me every day and checking up on me, or just friends who were, you know, quite needy and who wanted to hang out because things started opening up this fall. And, you know, it's just through those situations where you just have to be aware of it. And this has been quite an interesting time, because usually when everything would have been open like it should have been in a normal life, you might not even pick up on that, or how tough it is to get rid of that stuff, because you're literally constantly in other people's energies fields. Like, especially in a city this large, you're constantly in the person's field who's sitting next to you on the subway, or, you know, if you're in your workplace, somehow there are a million people there. You're just constantly in each other's field somehow. But just being isolated for a longer time, like we were over the spring and summer. I'm not saying that's a good thing, by the way. I think you know my opinion on whether or not that's a good thing. But just being isolated from people, except for if you had a family, then you were with your family 24/7. Me being isolated from people in that way it was actually healthy to see how many attachments can form once I am around people again, like in the park or on public transit or whatever. Just something to put out there. Okay. So also others can actually drag you into their soul contracts. Something as simple as liking a post or commenting on a post on social media can also form attachments, cords, and soul contracts, surprisingly. It really depends on how much emotion you put into it. You know, I have had my full share and full encounters with these social media posts over the past years or so. And right now I just feel like completely pushing away. First of all, I don't share the opinion of most of the people that post whatever on social media, unless, I mean, whatever. It's like always a waste of time to try to convince people of your opinion if they really don't have that opinion. At least that's what I found lately. But at the same time, even interacting with them, I already noticed that, you know, I personally, as an empath, I feel their anger. I feel exactly what their intentions are. And I'm also feeling that I'm not getting anywhere with this person. So lately I've been wondering, why even post, why even share, why even comment on those people posts if there's nothing's really going to be changed. I don't have to get my opinion across to get it across. I already have a platform like this out there where people who are following know exactly what's going on. They share a similar opinion. If they don't share a similar opinion, they can obviously utter it in a respectful manner, and we can dissect our opinions together in the comment section or in a YouTube live, but it's in a respectful way. It's not in a, you know, shaming others, name calling others names kind of way, if you understand what I mean. So that's an interesting thing. Actually liking a post, commenting on a post can form a soul contract.